Hello everybody, and welcome to my Tenmaku Cinema Chapter 3 review. This chapter is titled, The Shore and the Movie Research Club. So, as per usual, Shonen Jump is doing their normal thing of canceling series and then bringing some new series in. And, well, here in our most recent round of new series coming in, the first one to start off this sort of era was Tenmaku Cinema. This is a really fun series written by the Food Wars duo. Of course, that being the story by Yuto Tsukuda and the art by Shun Saeki. And to be honest, after just reading 3 chapters of this series, I am really invested in it and having a lot of fun reading it each week. So I just want to review it like I do some other series and yeah, just really talk about it. So if you haven't read Tenmaku Cinema yet, the plot is pretty basic. Pretty much our main character, Hajime Shinichi, is a third year in middle school, getting ready to take his entrance exams to go into high school, and he ends up getting possessed by this dude, and if I'm not mistaken, it's Takehiko Tenmaku. And Tenmaku is apparently a really good movie writer, a script writer, who was going to collaborate, or had collaborated, with another movie artist called Ryu Shirakawa. Now, Ryu Shirakawa is very important and very big, and it's one of Hajime's favorite movie directors, right? Well, pretty much what ends up getting explained is that, well, he's been dead for a long time, and so they can't fact check if Tenmaku actually worked for him or not. So then we eventually meet this very popular actor named Himeki Kuraki, whose real name is actually Hineki Kurai, so I'm going to refer to her as Kurai, and pretty much she is a very famous scriptwriter. She really knows what she's doing whenever it comes to acting, and pretty much Tenmaku sees her and decides to write a movie based on her being the lead role. So, long story short, he pretty much possesses Shinichi, or Hajime, to write the script, and Hajime eventually writes it, and Tenmaku pretty much forces him to give it to Kurai. Eventually, Kurai accepts a role of playing the main character, Nagisa, in this short film, which is called The Shore, and that's pretty much the whole first chapter. The second chapter is really based on the idea of learning more about everybody. Tenmaku and Kurai have this really nice talk where they sort of just really talk about movies and all of that good stuff, eventually with the idea of Tenmaku really needs Shinichi to write this movie, and Shinichi eventually is like, I really sort of want to make this movie too. And last chapter ends off with pretty much Kurai coming up, and she's just like, hey, my name is Himeki Kuraki, I'll be playing Nagisa in this short movie to Shore, and I look forward to working with you. And Shinichi, the fan of movies he is, brings her to all of his friends who are all in the movie research club, and that's where we really start this third chapter. So we pretty much open it up with the 3 of Tenmaku's friends who are in the movie research club being like, wait, we're shooting a movie? And like, Hajime, you wrote a script? I didn't know you were into that. And they're all just like, when that happened, and Himeki Kuraki's playing the lead? How did you manage this? Is this for real? And Kurai is just like, yeah, that's right, I am going to be playing Nagisa. And of course, 2 of his friends are just like, who's that? And Kurai is just like, oh, well, she's a strong-willed person who's the main lead in this movie. And both of Hajime's friends are just like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. As Hajime is just standing here like, oh no, what have I gotten into? As we see Tenmaku sort of in the corner just like, aha, what do you think about this? Right? So pretty much Hajime is just like, it is a truly excellent script, and it would be really messed up of me not to bring it to life, right? As he turns to Tenmaku and just like, hey Tenmaku, but we need to get one thing straight here. I am going to act like a ghostwriter here, right? I can offer a few ideas in the filming of this, but you are the one making me do this, Tenmaku, so it's up to you how I will film it indirectly. And he's just like, so I'll just follow your lead, tell me what to do, Tenmaku. But Tenmaku's just like, what are you talking about, Director Hajime? I work on the script, and that's it. Everything else is up to the director. You're Director Shinichi, aren't you? You're the one who's going to be filming this movie, right? And pretty much Tenmaku's like, now I have something I need to really tell you. If you take my script and make a terrible movie, I'll curse you to death. He's just like, all right, Shinichi, you're going to direct this thing. You're going to go for it. You've got this, right? So next we just sort of cut, I guess it's like a little bit of a time skipping away, probably like a few minutes at most, as Hajime's just like, sure, why not? And his friends are just like, yeah, we'll help with the movie, that's no problem on us. As we learned the name of his sort of black long-haired friend, his name's Akisu, right? We pretty much learned that Akisu is in the band, and this obviously sort of makes sense as they're going to need a score for the movie, right? So the music will probably be made by Akisu, right? But the long and short of this is pretty much just saying that, yeah, his friends are going to help him make the movie because, well, they want to. And pretty much we see that Akisu can help out whenever he's not in band practice, right? And the other two guys are named Bito and Shino, and he's like, you guys are good too? And they're like, yeah. And it's like, so why are you guys so kind? You're literally sort of saving my life here. Thank you. As his two friends, Bito and Shino, are just like, yeah, dude, we don't have any problem, right? We're going to be working with the famous Himeki Kuraki. We can't pass that up, can we? And he's just like, oh man, thank you guys, right? And he's like, well, you guys keep saying you have lights of time, but aren't you third-year junior high students? We have to take entrance exams, right? As Bito and Chino are already off, just saying like, oh my gosh, Miss Kuraki, it's so nice to meet you. She's sort of really over this, right? But we see that one of the guys, I don't think we actually know which one's Bito and which one's Chino, but one of them's just like, hey, by the way, if we're going to shoot a movie, this thing is going to cost us some money, right? And they're like, yeah, it's got to be a lot to make a movie, right? And they're like, oh, wait a second, we've got club research funds. And Hajime's just like, there's a little left, but that's got to be nowhere close enough to actually being able to film a movie. And they're like, oh yeah, that's right, Hajime, you're a financial wizard, you can figure this one out, right? And Hajime's just like, guys, you weren't even listening to what I had to say, were you, right? Well, Akisu pulls up his phone and he's just like, well, here's the thing, there was this super low budget movie called Don't Stop the Camera, right? I'm pretty sure they made it in some film school, and his two friends are like, oh really, that movie was great, and everyone's just like, hey, what's the budget on it, right? And he's looking at his phone, he's just like, oh, I see the production cost. Oh, 3 million yen, right? So for us people here in the States, such as I am, right? I'm reading through this, and pretty much I'm like, oh, I wonder how much 3 million yen is in conversion rates. So pretty much currently, with the current economy state of the world here on May the 1st of 2023, 3 million yen is equivalent to about $22,000, right? So that's just something to know there. So they're like, oh no, there is no way we can do it with that amount of money, right? But Hajime is like, hold up, we can do this. Plenty of great filmmakers have struggled with limited budgets and very big time constraints, right? Plus, The Shore is a movie about 20 minutes long. That should help with limit the cost. It won't be a full-length movie, so we don't have to worry about that, right? So, like, in terms of equipment and locations, there are lots of ways we can definitely be creative. We can use stuff that's already on hand, or we can buy stuff for cheap, or we can even borrow things for free, right? If we use our brains and think outside the box, we can make this work and make a great movie, right? And his friends are just like, yeah, maybe that'll work out. Hajime, that was really inspiring. And everyone's just like, yeah, don't stop, just keep trying to convince us. And Hajime is like, yep, leave it to me, I'm getting myself all fired up too, right? And he's like, fortunately, it is almost summer vacations. The victory is definitely ours. As Akisu is still sitting there on a table eating lunch with Korai, and he's just like, still no, Korai, aren't you busy with your real movie work? And he's just like, I'm surprised your agency was okay with you shooting a movie with your classmates. As he says this, and we see Korai just sort of duck her head off to the side, clearly avoiding the question. And Hajime even points out, he's like, wait, she didn't just avoid that question, did she? As we see that she just keeps looking over and just not paying him any attention. At this point, they get a knock on the audiovisual room door as two teachers come in, right? And they're just like, oh, look, it's Shinichi and the gang here. What are you guys doing, your movie research club? And they're like, yeah, that's what we're doing. As they pretty much learn that these two teachers are going to have to use a room for the PTA meeting this afternoon, right? The Parent Teacher Association, oh boy. And she's like, oh, sorry, I didn't know about that. Do we need to clear out? As he looks over and he looks down, and Kurai is just on the ground, right? She's just obviously hiding from the teachers, right? And they all get up to the roof, right? And Hajime is like, Kurai, I hope this wasn't my imagination, but when the teachers came by, did you really hide from him? As she looks away again. He's just like, why do you guys keep doing that? As Himeki gets to call on her phone, she's like, oh, it's my manager. I have a shoot this afternoon. It might be about that. As she calls it, and I don't think she puts on speakerphone, but it's of course loud enough for everybody to hear, and we sort of get the manager here being the plot device for this episode, right? As they're just like, Himeki, there you are. Your ride is almost there to pick you up, right? Also, regarding your summer vacation, I'm sure you know that between the shooting of the new film and various promo events, your schedule is packed. Be prepared to have exactly 0 free time to do whatever you want. As she's like, all right, we'll see you guys soon. As pretty much everybody hears this, and Himeki looks over to Hajime and just gives a stare, right? And he's just like, oh my gosh, you haven't told your agency about the shore, have you, right? And he just starts breaking it. He's like, oh, that's right, of course. Your schedule's totally packed. You're coming for vacation. Am I a moron? We'd be interfering with her real work. We could damage the world of Japanese cinema by hundreds of millions of points, right? And Becky sort of stops him and is just like, if anything unusual happens here, school gets in touch with my parents right away. And Akisu's just like, oh, that makes sense. I mean, with your busy schedule, if they found out you were making a movie with your classmates, I'm sure the teachers would be very concerned, right? And the other two friends are just like, oh no, it sounds like our movie's in the dumps, this isn't good. But Himeki's just like, no, it's okay. The shore is an incredible work. If my agency sees that, I'm sure they'll be fine with it, right? As soon as we finish filming, and it's in the bag though, right? And they're just like, wait, that means it's gotta be done. What happens if they find out before it's done? As we get a really sort of funny looking panel of Himeki here just going like, if that happens, they'll definitely put an end to it, right? As Shinichi looks over to Tenmaku, and Tenmaku is just doing this sort of like, hey, if you don't film it, I'm gonna lop your head off motion, right? So you gotta get this all figured out. As he's sort of like, oh crap, what can I do? And Himeki's just like, don't worry, I'm sure we can figure this out, right? And she's like, the shore and my acting in Shinichi's direction, just with those 3 things, it's guaranteed to be a masterpiece. And on top of that, we have a film crew, right? And she's like, movie production team Shinichi is complete. As we see that the 5 of them will be making a good old movie. And she gets a call and she's like, oh, my driver's here, sorry, I gotta be going. And she sort of dashes out. And Shino and Bino are just like, Himeki's speech was even more persuasive there than Hajime's was earlier, right? As they're just like, or as Akisu's just like, wait a second. We sort of need to know one thing. What's the shore actually about? And like, yeah, what's it about? And he's like, oh yeah, come think of it. You both promised to help what's going on without even knowing what the movie was on about. As everybody sits down and read it, and they're reading it, and they all just start crying, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so moved, right? And they're like, I'm not normally much of a reader, but this story really got me. And Akisu's reading it, and he's just like, what's going on with this? And some of these guys are like, Hajime, I had no idea you were this clever and could write such sharp lines. It's almost unlike you. As Hajime's just like here, like, oh crap, are they getting on to me, right? As we see Tenmaku's like going above him, just yelling at him, I'm the one you wrote it, you know me? As, of course, they can't hear him being that he's a ghost that Hajime's possessed by. But Akisu comes over and he's like, you know, Kurai's been in a lot of movies over the years, right? And Shinichi's like, yeah, and what's up about that? And Akisu continues like, she's seen a lot of masterpieces. I'm sure she's read tons of scripts by screenwriting veterans. And she wants to be in this movie so badly that she's willing to keep it a secret from this agency? I bet this script is far more amazing than even you realize. As we see Shinichi sort of take over a look at Tenmaku and is just like, who is this dude actually? As we cut over to him at his house and we see he's on his phone just trying to search up a bunch of things, right? Takeyu Tenmaku, director Ryushi Urikawa, list of screenwriter collaborators. Takehiko Tenmaku, amateur screenwriter. Takehiko, screenwriter, amateur. And just for none of these things, he can't find anything. As we see Tenmaku is there and he's like, Hajime, I want to see some of those movies that were made after I died. You got any good recommendations? And Shinichi's just like, Tenmaku, you were collaborating with Ryushi Urikawa, right? And he's like, yeah, I was. And he's like, all right, then which of Shirakawa's movies did you actually write? As we see, Tenmaku names actually 3. He says Endless Saturday, The Hound, and July Requiem. And it seems like he's like, those are just for starters, so it seems like he's done a few more, but those are the 3 he's actually sort of saying about right now. And Shinichi's just like, man, I love all of those, right? Especially the humanism depicted in The Hound, that eternal question of if we can ask of our consequences. And he's like, I know, right? It's so good. But he's like, but here's the thing. There's no Tenmaku here in the credits. Why is that? And Tenmaku starts saying, well, it's obvious, but he sort of pauses, is like, I can't remember. I don't remember the moment of my death either. My memory's kind of patchy here. He's like, well, I'm sure I'll remember it eventually. As we see, he sort of got this nonchalant attitude of, whatever, we'll figure it out. And we see Shinichi just sort of scrolling through his phone some more. Eventually, he Googles Shirakawa Company staff. And he's like, no matter what I search, I don't get anything for this Tenmaku fellow, right? He's like, pro or amateur, doesn't matter. If he has the chops to write a movie such as The Shore, then how could there be no trace of his name anywhere? For one thing, I need to help him pass over to the other world, but even more importantly, I want to know who Tenmaku actually is. As we see it, Tenmaku's over here wanting Shinichi to press play on the iPad so he can watch the movies. He's just like, yeah, I'll do it. As he throws his phone on his bed, and we get a shot of one of these articles, right? As we see that it's pretty much saying that at one point, renowned master Shirakawa was on side of this place or whatever, right? And we see a guy in the background and somebody who looks very much like Tenmaku. And that's where this chapter ends. I really think this was a chapter that really started to get me into Tenmaku Cinema. I think the first 2 were really good and fun, but I think this one really did it for me, right? I definitely really love the comedy moments with Meki, as she's just like dodging the questions, and eventually she's just like, I want to make this movie, even if we have to keep it a secret. I really find the sort of plot device of just a manager calling and saying, yeah, you don't have any time, is really sort of funny in a way. But most of all, the intrigue at the end of what is going on with Tenmaku, right? How did he die? And what does this have to do for Shirakawa, right? And he obviously worked with him at some point. I mean, he's in one of these pictures. I mean, he sort of looks different. I mean, his hair is different and all of that, but it probably just can be attested to him being a ghost now. So, yeah, it's a really good chapter with a lot of interesting intrigue in it, right? I was reading the comments on the Shonen Jump website here, which I do my reviews off of, right? And there's just a lot of people in the comments, right, just talking about, like, what they think about this series, and I definitely note this is a series that is going to stick around for more than just the 17 chapters or whatever, the 3 volumes, and being this is done by the Food Wars duo, I'm really excited to see where it goes from here. I've never actually, like, fully read Food Wars. I've maybe read, I don't know, 2 volumes of it. But just from this, I'm super excited to see where Tenmaku Cinema goes. And yeah, so I'll be back to talk about Chapter 4 at some point, and I just have to say, I'm super excited for this series, and if you aren't, well, you need to start reading it. So overall, I don't have much to say, and if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and do all that good stuff for the channel. And yeah, this will be Glowplasma231 out.